So the thing about the JKD process is that it's not a spoon-fed course, okay? What I mean by that is, right, we're not gonna tell you every single thing you need to know about Jeet Kune Do or fighting in general, okay? So, you know, I don't have all the answers, okay? Believe it or not, right? No matter where you go, no one instructor has all the answers, right? Obviously, when Bruce Lee developed Jeet Kune Do, you know, he pulled from many different sources, right? And he had many different folks who kind of showed him something or taught him something, right? So, you know, the idea of I'm just going to learn, you know, from one person or have one source is really not healthy, right? So even when you go to college, right, and school, you have different instructors, right, who kind of specialize or teach you different aspects of a subject or different subjects altogether, right? So it's the same idea when you're learning Jeet Kune Do, right? You know, kind of our philosophy is that really we want to learn Jeet Kune Do. That's why we call it a process, because we want to kind of follow the same process that Bruce Lee did in his development of Jeet Kune Do, right? So a big part of that, right, and how he developed his art was Bruce Lee he was always reading, right? He was always studying. He was always in the books, right? Because he wanted to soak up as much information as possible, okay? So that's one of the things that we encourage you to do to supplement your training, okay? It's great that, you know, if you sign up for the online lessons and you're doing the online videos and you got your training regimen, fantastic, right? Definitely do that, okay? But supplement your training, right? There is an incredible amount of books on Jeet Kune Do, right? Even books written by Bruce Lee himself, right? So let's take advantage of those tools, okay? One of the books that, you know, is in a lot of libraries of many martial artists, right, is the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, right? So the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Now, if you have this book, great, okay, fantastic. Definitely, this is a good, you know, resource for you to use and kind of, you know, supplement your training with. I will tell you, if you're new to Jeet Kune Do and you have this book or you're thinking about buying it, you know, at least from my experience, when I first read it, right, when I first started training and you know, before I knew a lot about Jeet Kune Do, this is gonna be kind of a tough read, okay? You know, quite honestly with you, right? A lot of the concepts and things in there are a little difficult to understand in the beginning. And keep in mind, right, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, this is a compilation of Bruce Lee's notes, right? So it's not as if he wrote this, right, for us to kind of follow along and we're going to learn Jeet Kune Do from this book, right? So that wasn't the intent of it, right? That wasn't the purpose of it. But again, it is a resource, and I highly recommend you guys use whatever resources that are available to you, okay? Another book I want to share with you is called Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's Commentaries on the Martial Way, okay? This one is by John Little. John Little was the editor, okay? This one's very similar to the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, but I think it's organized a little bit better, okay? It still is a compilation of Bruce Lee's notes, okay? So it is a collection of his notes, but I think it's organized in a little bit better fashion for you to kind of follow along. So definitely, I think this is a must-have in your library, okay? As you progress in Jeet Kune Do. Now, if you go to look for this book, the cover is a little bit different now. They've updated it, okay, but it's an older version of it, but to my knowledge, it's still available, okay? Another book I like, especially even for beginners, this is Sifu Tim Tackett's latest book, Essential Jeet Kune Do. So what I like about this compared to the previous two books is that, especially if you're just starting out learning Jeet Kune Do, this one is great because it'll help you more so on the physical techniques of the art, okay? A lot of what's in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do and the commentaries on the martial way, you know, are Bruce's notes, right? But there's not a lot of visual descriptions, right, of what the technique should look like, you know, and how to execute them, okay? So this one is loaded with photos and pictures, okay, which help and aid, right, as you're learning Jeet Kune Do. So definitely for a beginner, right? If you're just getting started and you want to learn the physical techniques of the art, I definitely recommend this. And this also contains a lot of the concepts that we cover as well in our program. So, but definitely a great book, a lot of good photos here. And then lastly, another book for beginners. This is probably my favorite, frankly, particularly for beginners, is the Encyclopedia of Jeet Kune Do. This is by Sifu Chris Kent, okay? Again, a fantastic book. This one's similar to the last one by Sifu Tim Tackett. It does contain a lot of photos of the physical techniques, which I think are helpful for your study in JKD. as well as a lot of the concepts and principles in the philosophy, okay? So I look for books that are more comprehensive, right? And covering Jeet Kune Do, not just the physical techniques, but also the theory behind it, right? And Sifu Kent does a great job in this book of covering that. So highly recommend you guys, again, supplement your training by reading, okay? Reading, take notes. I don't have all the answers, right? Don't expect me to have all the answers, okay? You need to do your own research, your own studying, just as Bruce Lee did, right? So the other way that we recommend our students supplement their training, right? Obviously, you know, you're likely here right now because there may not be a Jeet Kune Do school in your area, right? Got it, been there, okay? So, but maybe there's a boxing gym in your area, or a Muay Thai gym in your area, Jiu-Jitsu gym, or Krav Maga, or something in your area, right? So we always recommend that our students, even though you're doing the JKD, you know, online, at some point you do need to have someone to test it out with, right? What you're learning, right? Okay, it's great that you're doing online lessons, you're reading, you're taking notes, and you will progress that way, right? You are going to get better, okay, through that means, right? But ultimately, it is about application, right? And being able to apply. So at some point, right, you know, you're going to have to, you know, be able to do that, okay? Now, some of you all may already have experience, right, sparring and kind of training with partners and other people, right, and kind of get that feedback, right? But if you don't, okay, at some point, again, you know, we recommend you know, go to the boxing gym, right? Go to the kickboxing gym, okay? Whatever's in your area, okay? You know, take some classes, right? That's okay, all right? There's nothing wrong with that. Jeet Kune Do is about, you know, exploring, right? It's about that self-exploration, right? And so you shouldn't be limited to, I'm only gonna learn, you know, Jeet Kune Do in this one, you know, this one school, or this one place, right? Someone always has something to teach you, okay? And I always recommend folks to kind of look towards combat sports in particular, because that's really where Bruce Lee looked to, right? He pulled a lot from boxing and from fencing, right? Those are both sports. So generally, you know, if you have a combat sports, you know, martial art in your area, you know, I definitely recommend you check that out, okay, to supplement your training, right? If you can afford to do that, right? I know some of those places are pretty expensive and things like that, you know, but if you can supplement your training, that's a great way to do that, okay? But even having a partner or friend, someone to kind of bounce things off with at some point down the road in your training is helpful. Now, obviously, the JKD process is designed for you to do solo, right? Without a partner. I always emphasize that, okay? Most of the videos, right, are done without a partner, okay? There are some partner drills that we show you in there, but most of the stuff is just solo, right? Because we want you to be able to train on your own and kind of have that self-study, okay? You can get very far that way, right? But it's like learning how to swim on dry land, right? At some point, you got to kind of get in the water, right? Just to make sure you have that feedback, okay? So that's for the self-defense side, but it is your process, right? It is your journey, so you can make it whatever you want. If you just kind of want the book knowledge and you want to be able to just do the technique solo, that's fine, okay? That's fine. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? From the self-defense aspect, right, to make sure that you can defend yourself, right? It's always good, always helpful to kind of test out what you're learning against others with some resistance, right? A little bit there. So definitely recommend that. Supplement your training any way you can.